Today's lesson is 9.5, which is comparing and ordering fractions and mixed numbers. This lesson has two objectives, which I want you to write on your notes page right now. The first objective is to determine which fraction is greater or smaller when given two fractions. The second objective you have is being able to order fractions from least to greatest, or when asked, you should be able to order fractions from greatest to least. Feel free to pause and write down these objectives. The first problem we're going to do is compare numbers using the greater than, less than, or equal sign. Remember, the greater than sign kind of looks like you are eating the bigger number, while the less than sign looks like you are eating the bigger number on the other side. And of course, you should be familiar with the equal sign. Take a look at the fractions down below. We are going to be comparing 6/7 and 6/8. Now this fraction might be a little bit easy to eyeball and figure out which number is greater or smaller, but I want you to learn the theory behind how to do this. So, the easiest way of doing comparisons is making sure that you have common denominators. Common denominators help us better be able to compare the numerator so that we can see which fraction is bigger or smaller. First, I'm going to be looking at a number that both 7 and 8 can fit into. The fraction that I'm going to use for my denominator is going to have 56 on the bottom. The next thing I need to learn to do is figure out, well, how did I equal 6/7 to 56? And how did I get 6/8 to become 56 as well? I'm going to first look at my 7 and my 56 right here on this fraction. With my 7, I multiplied by 8 to get the denominator of 56. To find the equivalent fraction, I need to also multiply the numerator by 8 to get the answer of 48. I'm going to do the same thing with the second fraction. To get to 56, I had to multiply 8 by 7 to equal that. Now, whatever I do to the bottom, I need to do to the top, and 6 times 7 is 42. Now, instead of comparing 6/7 and 6/8, I'm comparing 48/56 with 42/56. Because 48 is the greater number, I know that in my problem, 6/7 is a greater number than 6/8. Let's try another. This is the same type of problem. We are going to be comparing the numbers 5/8 and 3/5. Remember, once again, you can find common denominators to help you better be able to see which fraction is bigger or smaller. However, there is a nice little trick that mathematicians can use to quickly find out which fraction is greater or smaller. I'm going to explain that different trick in this slide right now. The first thing I'm going to do is look at the denominator from my first fraction and the numerator from my second fraction. I see 8 and 3. I'm going to multiply 8 times 3 and put my answer above the numerator, which is 24. Next, I'm going to multiply 5 times 5, which is the numerator and denominator that I haven't used yet. 5 times 5 is 25, so I'm going to put the answer 25 close to the numerator of the fraction that I'm working with. Now, I can easily compare 25 to 24, and I know that 5/8 is the greater fraction. Now the question is, how does this work? Well, pretty much I just did a sped up strategy of what I did in the slide before. So, what I chose to do was quickly make equivalent fractions. I decided to use 40 as my denominator. And of course, 5/8 is going to equal some number over 40, and 3/5 is going to equal some number over 40. To get 8 to be multiplied into 40, I multiplied the denominator by 5. I'm going to do the same thing and multiply my numerator by 5 to get 25. In my second fraction, I had to multiply 5 by 8 to get to 40. Same thing that I need to do to the bottom, I have to do to the top, and 3 times 8 is 24. Notice that the numbers that I got from the top are equaling the numbers that I'm getting in my equivalent fraction below. So once again, 25/40 is greater than 24/40. You can use either method you like when solving these problems in class. Sometimes when you're comparing numbers, you might be given a whole number to work with. In this case, the whole numbers are both 3, so I can't easily compare which number is greater than or less than without having to look at the fraction beside it. Therefore, in this problem, I'm mostly going to be looking at 4/8 and 6/12 to see which one is greater than, less than, or equal. So I'm going to go ahead and take 4/8 and pull it apart from the fraction so that I can get a closer look at it. Now, the first thing you can do, of course, is find some equivalent fractions. I could easily go ahead and make my denominators both 24 because I know that 8 goes into 24, and I also know that 12 goes into 24. I can also do my cross-multiplying method of looking at 8 being multiplied by 6 and also 12 being multiplied by 4. I'm going to go ahead and do the faster method. First one I'm going to look at is 8 times 6. I know 8 times 6 is 48, so I'm going to put 48 above the fraction that is working with the numerator. Second thing I'm going to do is look at this 4 and 12 and multiply those two together. 4 times 12 is also 48. By looking at 48 and comparing it with 48, I can see that actually both 4/8 and 6/12 are equal fractions. And if I really wanted to reduce them, I would soon realize that they both equal 1/2. Therefore, I know that 3 and 4/8 is equal to 3 and 6/12. Here is another problem that I want you to try to solve. Please feel free to do this on your paper and pause. So, in this case, we are both working with the whole number of 5. Therefore, I'm mostly going to be focusing on this 1/4 and 4/10. Now, of course I can find equivalent fractions, and in this situation, I'm going to do that first. Of course, you can always cross-multiply too. If I wanted to find a common denominator, I'd be looking for a number that both 4 and 10 can go into. I'm going to choose the number 20. Therefore, I want 1/4 to equal some number over 20. And I want 4/10 to also equal some number over 20. To get my 4 to equal 20, I had to multiply my denominator by 5. I'm going to multiply the numerator by 5 to get 5/20 as my equivalent fraction. In order for 10 to get to 20, I multiplied my denominator by 2, and I'm going to be doing the same thing with the numerator to get 8/20 as my equivalent fraction to 4/10. To find my answer, I'm going to be comparing 5/20 with 8/20, and I would then know that my answer is going to be greater than. Of course, if you wanted to go ahead and do the cross-multiplying method with 1/4 and 4/10, you could first, of course, multiply 4 times 4 to get 16, and 10 times 1 to get 10. Because 16 is greater than 10, once again, I can tell that 1/4 is going to be less than 4/10. The rest of this lesson is going to focus on being able to order numbers from least to greatest. I try to choose fractions that would be a little difficult to eyeball. However, sometimes you'll be able to do that when you're working with fractions. I've had some students in the past first check to see if the number is closer to the 0 line, 1/2, or 1. And that's kind of helped them before. For me, my first recommendation is always to change your denominator to a common number. So I'm going to be looking at 8 and 7. And I'm going to be changing both of these to a number that both 8 and 7 can fit into. In this case, I know that both of them can fit into 56. So I'm going to be working with equivalent fractions while equaling all these numbers to the same denominator. For 6/8, I had to multiply 8 by 7 to get to 56. So I'm also going to multiply 6 times 7 to get the number 42. In order for 7 to equal 56, I have to multiply the denominator by 8. I'm going to multiply the top by 8 to get the numerator of 40. And in my last fraction, I had to multiply the 8 by 7 to get to 56. So I'm going to multiply the numerator 4 by 7 to get to 28. Now that I have common denominators, I can easily order these numbers from least to greatest. However, one thing that I want you to do in your answer is make sure that you are using the original numbers that I gave you. So the smaller number that I'm looking with is the 2856, which happened to be 4/8. So the smallest number in my answer is going to be 4/8. The next smallest number that I'm looking at in my answer is this 4056, which in our original problem was 5/7. So I'm going to be putting 5/7 as my next biggest number. Finally, I'm going to be looking at my biggest number, which was 4256, and write in the original number, which was 6/8. Ordering from least to greatest, my answer would be 4/8, 5/7, and then 6/8. Let's try a few more problems. This time, I decided to put in a whole number. Now, looking at these problems, I can automatically tell which number is going to be the biggest number. The 5 is going to be the biggest number because it has a whole number of 5, while the other two fractions have a whole number of 4. If I can already spot out which number is the biggest number, or in some cases, which one is the smallest number, I'm just going to go ahead and put that in my answer and not worry about making the rest of it an equivalent fraction. Therefore, the only fractions that I need to look at this time are comparing 1/4 and 1/8. Well, if we wanted to make these denominators the same, I would go ahead and just change this denominator to my 1/4 to become an 1/8. 4 had to be multiplied by 2 to equal 8, so I need to multiply the numerator by 2 to get 2. Now, 2/8 is greater than 1/8. So if we were working from least to greatest, I'm going to be putting my smallest number, which is this 1/8, as the first answer in the problem, which means that the next biggest number must be my number that I made 2/8, which is my original number of 4 and 1/4. Therefore, as you can see down below, ordering from least to greatest, my answer will be 4 and 1/8, 4 and 1/4, and 5 and 2/5. This is going to be a practice problem number 1. We are going to be ordering these numbers from least to greatest. Feel free to pause and go ahead and make your denominators all common. Hopefully when you were making your denominators all common, you realized that a number that 6, 4, and 12 can all fit into is going to be the number 12. So I'm going to go ahead and make the denominators 12 that aren't already 12. So I'm going to go ahead and put 5, 6 as a number with 12 in its denominator, 3 fourths. 11 twelfths will just stay the same, and then I'm going to change 2 fourths into a number over 12. Okay, I'm going to be looking at this 5, 6 and determining what its equivalent fraction would be if I changed its denominator to 12. Well, 6 times 2 is 12, so I'm going to multiply the top numerator by 2 to get the numerator of 10. Next thing I need to realize is what I had to multiply 4 by to get to 12. I had to multiply 4 by 3. So I need to do the same thing with the numerator. 3 times 3 is 9, so 3 fourths equivalent fraction would be 9 twelfths. Last, I'm going to look at this 2 fourths and figure out how my 4 turned into a 12. Well, on that one, I multiplied 4 by 3, so I'm going to do the same thing with the numerator, and 2 times 3 is 6. Now that I have all common denominators, I can easily order these numbers from least to greatest. However, once again, you must remember to order the original numbers, not the equivalent fractions. Therefore, I'm going to be looking at my new set of data and determining which numerator is the smallest. Well, 6 twelfths would have to be the smallest, so I'm going to write 2 fourths as my first answer. The next biggest answer would have to be this 9 twelfths, so I'm going to write 3 fourths as my answer. Next, I'm going to be looking at this 10 twelfths, so 5 6 is going to be my answer, which means that the biggest number I have would be this 11 twelfths, making 11 twelfths as my biggest fraction. These 4 numbers are correctly ordered from least to greatest. Please circle the smiley face of how well you understand. Please feel free to also write a question if you have something that you would like to cover in class the next day. Remember, this lesson is kind of involved, and so I plan on doing a lot of examples in class. Thank you.